Close your eyes for a moment and try to find your earliest memory. Really try. Push back as far as you can go. Maybe you find a birthday party, car ride, a smell that pulls you somewhere you can't quite name. Maybe you find almost nothing at all. Now here is the unsettling part. Something was happening to you every single day of those early years. You were eating, laughing, crying, learning, falling, being held, being afraid. Your brain was more active than it would ever be again. Millions of connections were forming every hour. You were experiencing your life in full, in vivid, overwhelming detail. And almost none of it is there. This is not a glitch. This is not damage. This is one of the strangest, most revealing features of the human mind. And the answer to why it happens will change how you think about memory, identity, and what your brain is actually for. The phenomenon has a name. Sigmund Freud called it infantile amnesia, and for once, a Freudian concept has held up remarkably well under modern scientific scrutiny. Most adults cannot recall events from before the age of 2.5 to 3. Memories from ages 3 to 7 are sparse, fragmentary, and often distorted. The rich, continuous autobiographical record most people assume they carry does not actually begin until somewhere around age 7 or 8. Think about what that means. You have lived years of your life that are simply gone. Not suppressed. Not hidden somewhere. Gone in the specific sense that they were never encoded into the kind of memory system that produces the stories you tell about yourself. But why? The first and most important reason has to do with a brain structure called the hippocampus. The hippocampus is the brain's memory consolidation center. It is the region responsible for taking an experience and converting it into a long-term autobiographical memory, the kind of memory you can consciously retrieve later and place in the story of your life. And in young children, the hippocampus is not finished being built. Neuroscientist Paul Frankland at the Hospital for Sick Children in Toronto has spent years studying this exact problem. His research on rodents, later supported by human neuroimaging studies, found that the hippocampus undergoes a period of rapid neurogenesis in early life, meaning it is generating new neurons at an extraordinary rate. And here is the counterintuitive twist. This rapid growth actually interferes with memory storage. New neurons integrate into existing circuits and disrupt the patterns that earlier memories were encoded in. The very biological process that is building your brain is simultaneously erasing the records of you experiencing it. You were not failing to make memories. Your brain was making and then overwriting them at a rate faster than they could stabilize. The second reason is language. Memory and language are not separate systems in the brain. They are deeply intertwined. When you form an autobiographical memory, one that you can consciously retrieve and tell as a story, you are doing something fundamentally linguistic. You are organizing an experience into a narrative with a beginning, a middle, and an end. You are labeling objects, emotions, and sequences with words. A child who does not yet have language cannot do this. They can have experiences. They can feel fear, joy, confusion, love. They can respond to those experiences in real time. But they cannot encode those experiences into the kind of story-shaped memory that they will later be able to retrieve. Psychologist Katherine Nelson at the City University of New York spent decades studying the relationship between language acquisition and autobiographical memory, and found that the onset of language is one of the strongest predictors of when a person's retrievable memory record begins. This is why your earliest clear memories often have an almost verbal quality to them. They feel like stories rather than pure sensory experiences. Because at the point your brain became capable of storing them properly, it was also becoming capable of narrating them. There is a third factor that is perhaps the most philosophically interesting. Autobiographical memory requires a self. Not just a body that is having experiences, but a self that is having them. A perspective. A sense of I. The developmental psychologist Mark Howe at City University London has argued that what we call childhood amnesia is not really about memory failure at all. It is about the absence of the narrator. To store a memory in the autobiographical sense, you need someone to store it about. You need a self stable enough, coherent enough, to be the protagonist of the memory. Young children are in the process of constructing that self. They have not yet fully developed what psychologists call the autobiographical self, the continuous, story-shaped identity that links past to present to future. Without it, there is no hook for the memory to hang on. Think about what this implies. The very thing doing the remembering is the same thing the memories are supposed to be about. Before the self is built, there is no one to remember being. But here is where it gets even stranger. Some of what you think you remember from early childhood may not be memory at all. It may be reconstruction. Elizabeth Loftus, perhaps the world's leading expert on false memory and a psychologist at the University of California, Irvine, has demonstrated across decades of research that human memory is not a recording device. It is a reconstruction engine. Every time you retrieve a memory, you are rebuilding it from fragments, filling in the gaps with what makes sense, what you have been told, what photographs show, what stories your family has repeated until they feel lived. Your earliest memories are particularly vulnerable to this. Research shows that many people confidently remember events they did not actually witness, events they were told about so many times that the telling became the memory. The birthday party you remember might be a composite of 3 birthday parties and a photograph you saw at age 10. The moment you remember as your first clear memory might be something your mother described to you so vividly that your brain built a scene around her words and stored it as experience. You are not lying when you report these memories. Your brain is doing exactly what it evolved to do. Memory was never designed to be accurate. It was designed to be useful. A perfectly accurate memory of every moment of your life would be cognitively catastrophic. What your brain does instead is keep the gist, the emotional residue, the lessons, the patterns, and let the details dissolve. It rebuilds the rest on demand, using everything it currently knows. This means the story you tell about your childhood is not a documentary. It is a film your brain is still editing, using footage, imagination, and other people's accounts cut together in a way that feels seamless because the editing is invisible. There is something both humbling and freeing in this. Humbling because the confident self-narrative you carry, the story of who you are and where you came from, is built on a foundation that is genuinely uncertain. You do not have access to the child you were. You have access to a reconstruction of that child, assembled by the adult you have become. Freeing because it means the story is not fixed. The meaning you assign to your earliest experiences, the lessons you drew from moments you may not even accurately remember, those meanings can be revised. Not because the past changes, but because the narrator does. Your brain spent your first years building itself so fast it could not keep records. It was too busy becoming you to document the process. And then somewhere around the age of 7 or 8, the construction slowed just enough that the recorder finally switched on. Almost everything that made you who you are happened before the tape was rolling. And yet here you are, still shaped by all of it, carrying the emotional weight of years you cannot see, moving through a life built on a foundation you will never fully remember, and somehow, inexplicably, still yourself.